storms of life, they come, and the road ahead gets steep. I will lift these hands in faith, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done, and the life I had because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high or valley low, I sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. When my heart is filled with hope and every promise comes my way, when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet, I will lift these hands in praise, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done, and the life I had because of your Son. Oh, love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am
Yeah, my heart was stone, just like this rock. How do you get out of that? I pondered that for so many years. I desperately wanted someone just to say, here you go. Here's a manual, and you follow these 3 steps, and you'll be free. And you won't ever have to look at it again. You won't desire that again, and it'll be all over. But that day never came. It's not that simple. When something like this is changing neurons in your brain, more addictive than cocaine, it doesn't just change overnight with a 3-step process. That's what I was longing for, desperate for someone to give me that answer. I just wanted to feel something besides guilt and shame. I was so done with that being my only feelings, my only emotions, guilt and shame over and over again. I didn't realize it, but over time, over so many years of desensitizing myself to images that I shouldn't have been seeing, my heart became so hard that I couldn't feel for other people. I didn't really care. I had no empathy or sympathy.
When you think that your husband is more interested in other women and their bodies than yours, it makes a wound that's really hard to heal. For years and years, I carried that wound around with me.
It saddens me, honestly, on how that can change a person, how that could change me. You know, people keep saying it's just images, you're not hurting anyone, but that isn't true, because the ramifications of viewing that stuff is a hard heart, and then the people around you, the closest ones to you, they end up getting hurt.
How was I supposed to feel when someone who you trust, who's supposed to protect you, is the very person who's hurting you? I was devastated. I remember sitting when people were getting married. There were so many people getting married around us. I remember sitting in the church, and I was fighting back tears. I was fighting back tears because my fairy tale was a nightmare. And that nightmare and that disappointment and those emotions drove me to feeling very angry and very hopeless, and in turn my viewpoint of God got really murky, and I had a hard time seeing anything but my pain. And anyone who's been through something that's this devastating, they know what that feeling is like. And on top of that I was really young and pretty immature, and I wasn't quite sure how to handle it, to be honest with you. At that time in my life was one of the lowest times, and I carried that with me for years as we went through 3 different separations. I was left alone all 3 of those times, and I remember just crying every night, putting myself to bed with tears. And I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I went through.
How can I bring kids into the world when I'm so full of shame? They'll feel that, and they'll recognize it. I just want to tell myself, my younger self, that 3 seconds of feeling good isn't worth a lifetime of pain and shame. Save yourself all the trouble that this will cause and call someone. Ask for help. Don't be ashamed. Know that there's people out there and a loving Creator that is there for me. He doesn't want to be. He is always here for me. And there are people out there that are as well. It's not worth it. I would contemplate the sin and I would just do it anyway. I'd view pornography and I'd feel like crap. I just didn't even want to look in the mirror. I had a hard time looking in the mirror. The shame was so overwhelming and so oppressive. I didn't know where to go or what to do. I just knew that it wasn't right. I knew that my heart was hard. I knew that I didn't know how to get out.
Maybe if I served him more, maybe if I would have loved him better, maybe if I wouldn't have said those things I didn't mean. All these different thoughts would run through my mind, and they were all lies. It was a bondage and something that he had been going through before we ever met, and it was something that I couldn't love out of him.
I even had people come alongside me and want to help. And I just went back. I'd take their advice for a time, and I'd just go back to it. Because I wasn't getting to the root of the problem. I wasn't getting to the heart issue. I was just looking at the prevention or the practical things to do to stay free, bounce the eyes, and take a different route home from work, or don't have a computer or a phone. And those things help, but they don't get to the root issue. They don't get to the heart. They don't get to the sin of man, the sin of Adam, my sin. Man, at 7 years old, being introduced to pornography at that age, I look at my son today and he's 7, and I can't imagine him seeing the things that I saw, and it just breaks my heart.
There were some people who wanted to walk alongside of me during that time, but it was hard to have them understand unless they had been through what I had been through, and there wasn't a lot of women rising up to say, yeah, this is my story, this is my husband, this is what I'm going through. We somewhat get embarrassed to share that we're going through hardships when we're Christians, but Scripture says that we're supposed to be able to rely on one another and carry one another's burdens, and that's something that I've taken with me through all of this. Is I want to be there for other couples that are going through this and be able to carry their burdens alongside of them, because that was crucial. And I felt very lonely and isolated at times. I had this one friend, when Adam and I were separated, I was all alone and had no one to talk to, and I would call her and cry. I would just cry, and she'd say, "I'll talk to you again tomorrow." That meant so much to me. Her name was Shelly. She knows who she is. She didn't even have to say anything. Just knowing there was someone there to call who I could cry out to, let my emotions out, that saved me during that time.
I remember one time It was like after our second separation. I had my phone in my pocket, and it pocket called my wife. And it was 2 a.m., and she heard someone ask for my ID at 2 a.m. And I wasn't a person that went to the bars, so she knew it was only one place that would ask for my ID, and it was the porn shop. Right there, live, unedited, in my pocket. My wife heard the whole thing. Talk about a shameful event. Talk about getting caught red-handed.
I don't know if there's anyone who can truly offer comfort when you feel like your husband has deserted you, when you feel like his interests have turned cold towards you, and that he doesn't look at you the same as he once did. I don't know if there's anything that could truly comfort that in this world. We were standing in our living room, and I was crying, and I said, there is no way we're going to have the godly marriage that we should have, that we were intended to have. We don't have kids. I longed for kids. We're not going to be able to have kids if this continues. Will you please go meet with someone? Anyone you choose, any study. And he was like, no. I said, well, I'm going to call the man that you met with before and see if he'll meet with you. And he was like, I said, okay, let's not argue about it. I'll give you a week. You decide where you want to go, who you want to meet with, and we'll talk at the end of the week. And I say, so have you made your decision? He said, yeah, I made my decision. I'm not doing anything. And I felt my heart sink to the bottom of my chest. I felt that devastating feeling come over. I felt that sick feeling in my stomach. I felt that hopeless piece of things. And I just thought, you know what? Maybe this is it for us. Maybe this is the end of the road. Maybe God is saying, no more. No more. Don't keep doing this. This is 7 years of this. Enough is enough. But as he said, I'm persistent. So he left, and he lived somewhere else for a couple months again. This is our third separation. And this one was brought on by me asking him to leave if he was going to continue conducting himself in an unfaithful and not kind manner. So finally, after a month, I asked him again if he would go talk to someone, and he was still not interested in it. Meanwhile, I'd been calling this guy that he had met with before for a purity study, and the guy had said, you know what, Joni, it's not up to you. He's not willing to come. He wasn't willing to meet with me before. He's got to be willing. He's got to call me himself. And I said, he won't. I know he will not call you. He will not do this. And this is the end of the road for us if you don't help us. I think I called him 3 or 4 times, and he finally, somehow by the grace of God, said, okay, if you can get him here, I'll let him come stay with me for a week.
So a man of God was supposed to be the provider, protector, and lover of the family and his wife. And I never actually experienced any discipleship from another godly man in that way, and to show me what things were required of me, what things God said made a man a man. It was just what I experienced growing up, is what I thought a man was. But none of the things that biblically God says, I wasn't abiding to. I didn't really know what to do. But what I did know was that I feel like we all know what sin is. We all know what's the difference between right and wrong. Biblically, it's laid out for us very clearly. And so I knew that pornography was wrong. I knew that seeing those images was wrong, and yet I kept doing it because I was satisfying my flesh, and honestly, I didn't really care.
And telling the story only releases other people from feeling like they're alone and feeling hopeless and feeling like they have no one to turn to, and another marriage is lost. So sharing breaks bondage.
It wasn't until honestly, my wife forced me to go and see this guy. And I had met with him before, and we had gone through a study, and it was good, but I didn't get the healing I needed. I didn't get to the root of the problem. It was just kind of go through a book, and it was great, but it wasn't what I needed. And so she said, you need to go and see this guy for a week. You need to go hang out with him for a week. And I'm not taking no for an answer, basically is what she said. And at this time, I was so like rock hard about it, saying, well, I don't need to go. I'm not going to go. And my wife is very convincing. And she said, you're going to go. And this is what's going to happen because I can't do this anymore. And honestly, a little piece of my heart softened right there. And so I said, okay, I'll go. So before I left, we had breakfast. And she said, you're going to leave your cell phone with me. And you're going to meet this guy. And see you later. So I left, and on my way to meet this man, I told him I would be there at, I think, 4 o'clock or something like that. And I was a jewelry designer, so I had some jewelry to drop off at a place, and I just took my time. I ended up getting there at like 6 o'clock. So 2 hours past the time I said I was going to be there. So I show up, he opens the door. Hey, Adam, nice to see you. Where were you? You said you're going to be here at 4, and it's 6. And I said, well, I had some stuff to do. And he goes, you know what? A man of God is true to his word. If you say you're going to be here at 4, you need to be on time and be here at 4. And right there, I knew this was going to be a different kind of scenario than I'd ever been in before. He was going to hold me to my word, which no one had done before. And he was going to show me what a real man of God was supposed to be like. So I showed up at his house having an earring in my ear and backwards hat on. And I think I had a beard at the time. And he laid out the ground rules and how it was going to go, what time I was going to wake up. He was going to work. I was going to make meals while he was gone, and etc. But it was awesome because there was structure. That's something I really lacked. I lacked structure, and he gave it to me. And it was amazing. He went to work, and the first couple of days were uncomfortable. I felt like I was being told what to do. I was uncomfortable with that. I was very uncomfortable. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder about it. He lived in a pretty large house, and it was just me there during the day. And all I had to do during the whole day was I had Christian books that he had on his bookshelf and the Bible. And basically that's all I was able to do all day was read. And I read several books that week and dug into the Word of God like I never had before, and prayed and journaled and wrote things. And God really started to touch my heart during that time. So during the times where I was reading and praying, I really felt convicted to write down all the sin I could think of in my life on a notebook piece of paper. And I think I ended up with over 100. And then I went through and prayed through every one of those and asking for forgiveness. But the heaviness and the weight I was feeling, and it was just the weight of the sin on my shoulders that I knew had to be gone. After that week, I came home knowing that I was forgiven, knowing that I was set free of this bondage. And I told my wife, I said, here's what happened this week. And I explained to her everything that happened. And knowing that it was going to be hard for her to believe because I had done things like this before, not to this extent, where I had made promises and then broke them over and over again. And I knew in my heart this time was different, but she didn't. So I knew there was an uphill battle even after the healing.
So how could a weary heart trust a man who had broke it? One way. God had known how deep my desire was to have children. And he knew how I had closed my heart down to my husband after multiple hurts and wounds and just an unhealed woman. And I didn't even know if he could love me because I was so wounded. I didn't know if others could love me because I was a wounded person. But God showed me the complete opposite. He showed me unconditional love. He brought the most amazing friendships and people with unconditional love around me. And Adam came back. He told me that he would never leave me again. And I still didn't know what to believe with him. But again, I knew that God was doing something. His voice changed from the first phone call that he left when he was at that man's house to the last phone call. I knew something was changing in his heart. I could see it. And I wanted to trust, I wanted to believe, because I wanted to serve a victorious God. I wanted our marriage to be victorious. 2 months after he came back, we got pregnant. I was shocked. I was overjoyed. He was still in St. Cloud. We had this little A-frame house on a very busy road next to a gas station that was open 24 hours. It didn't sell in 7 years, I think it was. And we had already moved on to a new life. We had opened a business, but this house wouldn't sell. And so he was fixing it up to get it sold. So I called him because I could not wait. He was spending the night down there. And I'm like, you'll never believe it. I took a pregnancy test. And God said, you don't have to doubt anymore. I have given you the most beautiful promise that your marriage is saved. You're pregnant. Eden will be your promise. And he gave us that name. He said, name her Eden. She's a girl. Her name means delight. And grace, Eden Grace, for God is gracious. And my name, Joan, means God is gracious, and Adam, John. John means God is gracious. So it was a beautiful name all the way around.
Turning to the Lord and running to his arms, it was just confirmation through the pregnancy with Eden that he was going to change my heart.
In those first couple of years of marriage, we both hurt each other in so many different ways. And we're unfaithful in different ways with the things that we would choose to do. And the Lord redeemed all of it.
The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone.
The Lord allowed me to open my soul to this man, to learn how to forgive what felt like the unforgivable. The Lord mended my heart and gave me peace to continue on.
Our salvation.
Within the next 10 years, we had 2 more boys.
So we had 3 kids, Eden, Lincoln, and Solomon. And the Lord has enriched our lives in so many different ways. But healing, it wasn't an event. It came in years and years and layers that we had to unfold each of these layers of healing. And we're probably still healing. There's always going to be things in marriage that you have to improve and work on. But there has been redemption, love, forgiveness, discipleship with one another through the things we're going through, sharpening each other.
The sin was so deep in my life, it keeps coming up in different areas that I didn't understand. I didn't know how much I actually hurt Joni, how much it deeply wounded her. That's something I have to continue to work on today to heal that. And it's an ongoing process. The pain that I caused was so deep to her and even my own heart that there's things today that I'm still discovering that need to be healed.
A woman's blog that I read saved my heart during that time. It went something like this: with the God of angel armies, the God of all creation, the God who can do anything, the beginning and the end, would put me with the very man whose sin would force me to run to the arms of Christ. And in turn, Christ could show me how much he loved me.
I stand, all of the ground is sinking sand. The rock won't move. No, the rock won't.
Over the next 10 years, I would have to relearn all about my wife. To truly know her, we all need to be known. We all desire to be known. And my wife specifically, she needs to be known by me as her husband.
If my heart is overwhelmed.
The days come and go. There are days when things will bubble up and the feelings are overwhelming, and I have to take every thought captive and be transformed by the renewing of my mind and remind myself that Scripture will always be what I should run to, and God should always be what I run to first, and not to my husband. My husband can't be the saving grace for everything that is hard in my life. That only comes from our Lord.
Because of your Son.
I decided to run towards my family instead of away from them. I decided to face my fears, face my sin, and allow the Father to change me from the inside out. One of the keys to this was discovering my identity in Him, and that's something that I shepherd my children in today. Each of them has a specific prayer that I pray each night over them that God has given me that shows exactly who they are.
When my heart is filled with hope and every promise comes my way, when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet.
Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, taking every thought captive to Christ. You guys, I can't express how important this is. Every thought we have matters. Everything we do matters. We're here specifically at this time for a purpose that God has given each one of us.
Oh, love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours.
She truly was our promise that the Lord would redeem and restore our marriage. It didn't happen as quickly as we would hoped, but when we put our faith and our hope in the Lord, He will always keep His promises. She is our delight. Every time we look at her, we're reminded of what the Lord has done.
I'm 10 and I'm Eden. I'm 8 and I'm Lincoln. I'm 5 and I'm almost 6 and I'm Sullivan. And sometimes they call me Daddy.
Marriage is between a man, a woman, and the Lord. It's a covenant. It's one of those things that can't ever be broken in the eyes of God. And we are to have agape love for one another, not ever forsaking each other for anything else.
Thank you for watching our testimony video. We ask that you share it and let others know about our mission and our ministry. If you want to make a donation to our ministry and the things that we are trying to do and start, you can contact us through our Haven House Ministries page. We just thank you for taking the time to walk alongside of us, all of you who were a part of this journey with us. You were so instrumental in our lives, and we really appreciate your prayers and everything that you've done for our marriage.
Thank you for watching, and we hope this video encouraged you. Please reach out if you need help.